What do I do? I guess that means recordings in progress. Okay. Some of you are familiar faces, some of you are new. Welcome. Okay, so my name is Daniel Kohn, and I'm going to be teaching you a few sessions about the place of love in the Torah's vision. And I'd like to see that from the vantage point of how the Torah presents itself to us as a book, which is really, on the one hand, is a story, a lot of stories in the Torah. On the other hand, there's a lot of rules in the Torah, and how this is bonded together by the really what I think is can be best defined as a quest for a world, the one built on love.
Amen.
There we go. So we see this speaks to us. I mean, we're going to want to understand a little bit better what we mean when we talk about love. What is that? What does that involve? What gets in the way of it? And what is the vision of a loving individual and the experience of the love of God? So yeah, so it's an important topic. Well, let's try and step in, right? And so for me, the best way to step in is to start looking together with you at the texts that give over the teaching. But just to get a sense of who's in the room, because that's also important to me. So you're Esther, I know you. And you are?
Hi.
Hi, and where are you from, Haya?
I'm originally from Los Angeles, but my family made
Oh,
you know, like in Winston.
Oh, okay. And so now you're living
My
in the
whole
Winston's
family.
house, and you're learning here full time, or you're just
Yeah, my
She also lives here with us.
also lives where? What?
Here with us. She's a student here, yeah.
Okay, great. How old are you?
18.
18. Okay, Center. And you?
I'm Ellie, and I am fortunately and unfortunately just visiting for the day. I'm really glad to be here today, and
Okay.
I'm sad that it's just today. Austin,
And
Texas.
where are you going
From
from
Austin.
here?
I've been here for a couple of weeks
Oh,
volunteering.
I see. So,
And I'm returning to Austin at the end of the week.
Austin, Texas. Wow. True. All right. Glad you're here.
Me too, thank you.
I'm Clarity.
Right.
You're an Austin, Texas. How we know each other.
You're also from Austin?
Clarity brought Ellie.
Interesting. Wow.
Except that she had to come on today.
All right. Okay.
She came from Jerusalem
I
for the
came
class.
because Clarity.
Yeah, I knew.
And okay. You?
This is
Hi, I'm Esty.
You're from New York. And you're staying here in Beirut? You're studying here? Okay.
I'm Hindi, and I'm also from New York. I'm in
Okay. So.
I'm Chaya Miro, and I'm selling all of your books. And to the merit of Clarity, who gave me your book. So I gotta throw it back to her.
You're
Yes.
selling all my
yes.
books? Gee, I need to talk about
Yeah,
that.
you didn't know you have a #1 fan over here. We've been hearing all the praises.
You're familiar with URA, the organization URA? My father works for URA, the Kirov organization, and I just sent him your book. This book, you just must read. So you're touching
On prayer,
generations.
the book on prayer.
Yeah, you're touching generations.
Okay, thank God. And Goldie, of course. Great, so you're continuing here.
Yeah, for now.
Question. Okay. And just remind me your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. And you are?
I'm Noah,
Yeah, you're another name.
Noah Zelder, and I came just after Rosh Hashanah, right before Yom Kippur. Baruch Hashem, the Madricha for the year. And my two kids are here with me also, my two youngest. Baruch Hashem, one in Bar Ilan XP experience program and one at Bear Miriam in Jerusalem. So the three of us are in Israel for the year. B'ezrat Hashem staying.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm going to get rid of this chair because I don't like being so comfortable.
I did try to fix the chalkboard in case you need it, but some spaces work better than others.
Okay, so let's go. So, when a person opens the Torah and in a Jewish way, so actually the first thing that stands out to us in terms of the way the Torah is given to us is the graphic and even more specifically the first letter of the Torah. And I'd like to take a few moments to investigate that in the context of what I said we're going to be exploring, which is that the first letter of the Torah is a bet. Okay, not to start with some letter. It's not like it would seem that you could make such a big deal out of it, but in fact, the Midrash makes a big deal out of it. The Zohar makes a big deal out of it. This is something which is really meant to give us something. And if you look also at the first two words of the Torah, you'll see a very interesting phenomenon, and that is that the first three letters of the Torah are the same as the first three letters, or the three letters of the word that follows that first word. In other words, Bet Resh Aleph and then Bet Resh Aleph again. Okay, so that also perhaps is delivering some kind of a message. So the Midrash says, yeah, of course it is, and that what we're witnessing is that which the entire creation stands on. And I'll tell you the Midrash, and I think it's a good place to start from, which says that actually all of the letters in the alphabet came before HaKadosh Baruch Hu to volunteer themselves to be the first letter that the Torah would start with. So everyone wants it. And so first the Tav comes in, and the Tav offers herself, and Hashem says to the Tav, it's not good because you have to do with endings, not beginnings. And you're part of the word Mavet, and Tav, it's going to be put on people's heads in the times of Ezekiel, whatever, we're not going to start with the end. So then the Shin comes in, right? And the Shin, Hashem says, it could work, but you are also the first letter of the word Sheker, which means lies. And we don't want to start with that. So then the Shin goes out, and the Resh comes in, and the Resh says, what about me? And Hashem says, well, Russia starts. And Ra starts with you. It's not a good deal. So, okay. All right. Okay. What about Kuf? Kalala. There's a curse, like not good, not Kuf. Tzaddik seems to have a good chance, Tzaddik, but no, Hashem finds something wrong with Tzaddik. And it goes through all of the letters of the alphabet until finally it gets to the Bet. And then the Bet comes in and Hashem says, you are the one because you are the beginning of the word Baracha. Then it's a blessing. So that's reason to create the world with you. But then the Aleph comes in and says, wait a minute, you give me a chance. I mean, maybe I'm the one. Why stop there? And then Hashem says to the Aleph, in fact, you're not right to start creation with, but you are right to start my talking to the Jewish people with when I will say to them at Mount Sinai, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am God, right? Okay, so it's a medrash, right? Which, we always have to understand what it is. Obviously, it's a kind of a, not to be taken literally. There's something which is profound in its literal reading. And those who do read a bit literally, like the Ibn Ezra, one of the great commentators on the Torah, really kind of lays into this medrash and says, come on, there's plenty of bad words in this Torah. And then he gives a whole list of bad, tough things that start with bet. So, why, it seems like what's it called? The cards were stacked. That was cool.
Yeah, the cards are stacked against all the letters, though, right?
It seems like there was something that was just already built in or forget it. So the Maharal, who I'll often quote, says otherwise. He says, "You're missing the point. I mean, you're actually making the point in a way. Indeed, there was something about the bet which is irresistible as the root for the creation, because the bet, as being two, is actually the expression of a world which was created to bring about duality, multiplicity from the one. And though indeed Hashem will introduce himself with an aleph, that's entirely appropriate because the aleph is the silent letter, and the presence of the divine in the world is silent. And that silence is because it precedes any multiplicity, any duality, any kind of expression at all. Expression is always expression, right? It's outside the one who is expressing it. And so whereas the aleph indeed would be an appropriate reflection of the divine, Anochi, God introducing himself, that is the appropriate introduction to a world, which is a world of multiplicity. And multiplicity begins with two, and so you'll begin with two because from there everything else will unfold. Once you have two, then, well, there's endless variations of two, right? There are endless variations of two. That's the whole binary system of computers is built on endless variations of two. Right? And that's indeed the way we are structured, is completely duality of like having limbs that are dual, of the double helix being doubled, of everything coming in pairs, even in the proteins that we are produced from, all the way down to the relationship between a man and a woman that makes it possible for there to be a continued multiplication and expression by virtue of them being different one from another. So the truth is, in another Midrash, she goes on to say, the truth is everything is in pairs, really, when you look at it, because at the very beginning of this verse, right, it says, Shamayim va'aretz, there's heavens and there's earth, right? And then there's light and darkness, and then there's dry land and the seas, and then the waters are split, and then the truth is there's 6 days which are paired. And in fact, the Midrash says, what about the seventh day? Who's the pair for the seventh day? It's God himself or the Jewish people, but it's got to be that there's a pair. You know, and even if you look at the way the days also pair off with light, and then the next day the split, and then split. If you'll take a look and you'll watch, the first is with the fourth, and the second is with the fifth, and the third is with the sixth. One way of pairing them. There are other ways of pairing them too, but the point is that that it's a world in which we're seeing double, right? And that's in fact, if we just go with that for a moment, this sense of like the double in the two eyes, right, is what gives the possibility of three-dimensional. Otherwise, if you were just looking at one eye, it will all be flat. So the dimensionality of things comes out of that duality. And really, let's just say it doesn't seem, one could claim it, and we could talk about that in a moment, it doesn't seem that this is just because that's how we categorize things. It seems to be that the world is really structured that way. Now, of course, anyone could say, and it might be rightfully so, that that's just the way you're seeing it. You're just seeing duality, but really it's all one, etc., etc. That may be the case. Okay, so then I've been designed in a way in which that's how I experience it. So that means something. You wouldn't want to belittle yourself because of some ontology of the way things are, absolutely and objectively speaking, which anyway, not so clear exactly what that would mean. Our consciousness and the way in which we experience life is definitely dualistic. No question, right? And that itself bespeaks the divine desire that indeed we should experience things that way. So I want to start with that assumption, and with that recognition, with that appreciation, and that is the way the Midrash, as I said, introduces basically this phenomenon of the Torah beginning with two, right? So this is really interesting in terms of the nature of a world that we're going to be exploring, a world which is designed in some way to achieve out of that opposition, so to speak, of the two and the difference, world in which there's going to be some power, though, which binds those two together, which attracts them to each other, which draws them to each other, because those first two words are in the numerical value 2, 200, and 1, right? 2 is bet, Reish is 200, interesting. And then Aleph, which is 1. That's very, very important, actually, because indeed the threesome of things tends towards the unification of them, right? In other words, the reality of there being three in general is that there will be two extremes, and then third, which synthesizes, unifies, bonds, centralizes those two, which would have been at the extreme. So as I said, we're just kind of starting with graphics and letters, but that can tell us a lot. You don't have to be a mystic to appreciate the precision with which the Torah is written, that it does begin things this way, and that I think is really a very precious recognition for us about the nature of what it is that is happening here. We're experiencing, by virtue of the nature of our consciousness, which is dualistic and dichotomous, we're experiencing a world in which things are dual, and there's a single experiencer, us, right, who somehow is able to hold these two together. That's interesting, given that indeed we are somehow a representation of the divine, right? After all, we're in the divine image. So, I wonder if there's one God who is generating multiplicity, just like we are one self generating multiplicity by the virtue of the sort of consciousness with which we're created. So you can begin to get a sense of how, on the one hand, I'm seeing all of you, but by virtue of it being me who's seeing all of you, I am somehow bonding you and binding you all together in the very presence of my being, myself, my awareness, however you'll describe it, which is by the nature of it, holding you all in, so to speak, one space, right? As we call it, one conscious space. So this becomes super interesting, right? In terms of a stance on life. Most people notice the duality that they're experiencing, but they neglect to notice that they are one that is experiencing. And that, I think, is a very important and profound teaching as we move into the world of love. And we're kind of a long way from it right now. We were just talking about numbers and the phenomenon of consciousness as being a binding and unifying power, right, in selfhood, which is in some sense singular, that itself is its own investigation. But this is very meaningful to us, and whereas there might be in certain cultures who will say, well, your brain is just defining things dichotomously, but if you could simply enter simple consciousness, then you would recognize that all is indeed one. And there's definitely truth to that. I don't
Even in the oneness, there's a duality because you're holding what Hashem gave you as part of Him.
Okay,
so you have that duality too in the oneness, right?
That's the you talking,
right?
Who experiences
the oneness, right?
Well, no, who experiences things in their multiplicity, but what I'm saying is that may be very true. That statement I just made, it would ignore the realness, the veracity, the significance, the importance of having a mind that indeed sees things this way. And I suppose the question, I don't want to go off subject, but I just want to point out the question, of course, always will be, is that valuable, or is that something we're supposed to get beyond? Right? And that's always a question. And in Jewish teaching, as far as I know it, right, is no, we're not. You're supposed to live fully as a human being. You're not supposed to get beyond being human. You're supposed to live fully as a human being, which means that the utilization of your mind in that way of duality and multiplicity, there's clarity over there, of duality and multiplicity is a phenomenon which is a precious one, not one to be undone, right? And this is, I think, one of the important things that will be crucial for our understanding and our appreciation of love as being an awareness of otherness, an awareness of separateness, with a experience which turns into a drive, which turns into a passion for unification, but rests on some mysterious plane of the experience, both of that separateness and difference, and the attraction that they should come together because there's some presence or realness to our being at one, even though there's also a presence and realness of us being two, right? And that is the tension which love rests in, or doesn't really rest in, is dynamic in. Love is not resting ever. So it's so this Bet, Resh, and Aleph phenomenon here, right, of two, and then one, it respects the two, and then the one. The one is great. We'll get that at Anochi Hashem Elokecha. We'll get there. But if you don't tell all the stories, see all the phenomena, recognize the multiplicity of the manifestation as valuable, not as some hallucinatory falsehood, which you're to step beyond, right, and forget about, and become enlightened in that. No, there's something happening here which is precious and of value. There may be other planes of existence, and there are other planes of existence, but this is the plane of existence into which we've been created, and therefore, as the Zohar says, Hashem created that world with a bet. He didn't create it with an aleph. Right? Okay, but it does lean towards and tend towards and intend to get to in some way that aleph. Right?
So would you say that, like, to be able to kind of flow in and out and to be able to perceive the unity within the duplicity, boundaries would be the link? Like of those boundaries? Because that's like such a formation of creation. Like the
I'm
boundaries.
sorry, I missed the beginning of your sentence.
Would you say our ability to be able to conceive the unity within the duplicity, would you say that boundaries is one of the crucial parts of that? Like honoring our own boundaries in that process?
Very much. Very much. Yeah, very much. And yeah.
Is duplicity different than duality?
That's a
Yeah, I think it is. Duplicity is, I think that what you meant is duality.
Duality,
Yeah.
yes.
Duplicity is a purposeful separation between the external appearance and the truth of the matter.
That's why it's also used as like.
So it's generally a negative, to someone who's duplicitous. That's just, okay, yeah, anyhow, correct. No, it's good. It's good. She was asking naively. It was an ingenuous question. It wasn't a duplicitous question. She wasn't trying to catch you. Right. Okay. Yeah, but that's it. I know. I'm very glad for that conversation because that's exactly the point. In other words, is the creation a duplicitous reality or a dualistic one? Right. If it's duplicitous, that means that somehow existence has produced a lie.
It's nefarious.
Right, exactly. It's with, and there are traditions that view it that way, right? That it's a misrepresentation of the truth. Whereas in our understanding of things, right, it's not a misrepresentation of the truth. It's a truth. It's a perspective, which is, and here's the important point, which is precious, which is crucial, which is actually, yeah. So we're going to get there. I don't,
Can I say something?
Sure.
This whole thing about duality and oneness and both being true in a way, it just reminds me in Judaism, often we hold two things that are completely contradictory, but both can be true. Like these and those are the words of living God. So that's what it reminds me of, that concept.
It very much should, and I think you're right on the mark. I mean, I come here after teaching a page of Talmud every day, and the Talmud is celebrates, back and forth, celebrates the differences between the teachers and their differing perspectives. We love that. We love that. Yeah, it's like, and it's so interesting, to me. This could be like a really nice spare time project, looking at how the names of the different Chachamim reflect the stances that they take on different issues, right? It's very interesting. You have Rabbi Yehuda, who almost always talks in terms of like universals, and you have Rabbi Yosef, who becomes much more like individualized, like Yosef HaTzadik. And you have Rabbi Nehemiah, who seems to be sort of a calming influence for peace. And you have it's fascinating to see, and on a certain level, I think I don't know how much they were purposely, or I would self-aware or whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is that that it's very important also to the Talmud that things be said in the name of the person who said it. Right? You're probably familiar with that. Anyone who says something in the name of the person who said it brings a salvation to the world. That's a very interesting idea. People usually take that as being like, don't steal, make the appropriate attribution. But I think there's a deeper message in it, that there's a very particular perspective which is now being taught, which has to do with the whole
the
uniqueness
entire
of soul, which is the one who spoke
entirety.
and in an entirety, exactly. And so that then you're bringing something which is a whole world.
So you're bringing salvation in the sense that you're acknowledging the importance of each and every puzzle piece.
Yes.
The entirety of it.
Yeah.
And that's so important because you can't leave one out, because you would still be missing that one. No matter how
especially
inconsequential some might think that little piece is, it could be the cornerstone for all we know. Right?
Well,
David
they all are. They all are.
Exactly. Well, I mean, like a lot of the collective thoughts, David Amela.
They all are.
Exactly. They're all equally important.
Well, if you look, okay, so I don't want to go off. I see ladies are dangerous, but like but you understand this, right? It's very important to appreciate that appreciation of those differentiated perspectives, right? And that's something which this begins right here with this Bereshit bara, something else which could be everyone is exactly try to keep for me it's even better
a round table
circle,
yeah
as a matter of fact I really am a
favorite type of table.
and I'm responding also to what's in the room, not just coming here with a prepared speech, but
thank you for that.
Well, that's
greatly appreciated.
Well, that's part of the teaching.
Yes,
that's part of the teaching itself.
Exactly.
In the sense that there needs to be some communication. Okay. So, and what keeps happening is when you lean forward, then I can't see you. So, yeah, there we go. So, again, our common theme, right, that we're exploring right now is appreciation, valuing, and preciousness of a reality within which two different can come to be together, right? And in a way, like, it's very important for us to recognize that, like, how much we do live in a world in which different perspectives could be. So, I mean, like, if I were to shine a light from here, so you'd see a round circle down here. If I were to shine a light from here, so you'd see a rectangle on the wall. Which is true. These are the shadow of a circle and the shadow of a rectangle. They are falsehoods. The only thing true is the cup itself, right? But that's not true. I mean, it is a part of what is. And we can't just enter into the shadow. And we need to know that there is something that shadow is expressing. But on the other hand, that shadow is real because it gives us the direct contact, whereas this is somewhere floating in the air. For as a metaphor, right, for how much we're always living this aspect of life, and how much pleasure we get when it all comes together. If I would just continue sort of like, opening up, it would begin to get very frustrating because you would want to know what's the common theme. Who cares what the common theme is? The point is that we're generating ideas and information. No, we have a natural tendency and desire that, okay, could you Kai please summarize what you've been saying? Like, what is that? What is that? It's not just about sort of like, I want to have something I can take with me. It's not just about that. I want to take it all with me, but I want to understand how is this all bonded and bound together. That is a very profound human desire. So in the world of ideas, but it's also a very profound desire in physics, that these molecules are like looking to interlink. It's an extremely profound phenomenon in your brain, which has more interconnectivity than any other type of molecule that we're familiar with. I mean, it's just always sending out those, dendrites, what are they called? Like dendrites, like to make more and more connections, and then it gets too much, so it needs to be pared down, right? But the phenomena are all sharing this sense of sharing, right? As being respectful of and appreciative of and enjoyable with the differentiations that then all seem to have some drive, some intentionality of coming together. So that's the bet and the reish and the aleph, right? So this is just to enjoy and appreciate this as a kind of a very basic beginning to an investigation of a Torah that is looking at the world of multiplicity and seeking its bonding together. And that itself being driven by some underlying aleph, some underlying silent being, presence, reality that is there. So that's statement number one.
But it had two. Just kidding. Statement number one.
Is that it had
Within it,
two.
many. But many statements, but it was really only one statement. Right, illustrated by many. Now to indicate that what I'm actually talking about is accurate to how the Torah presents itself, and not just kind of jamming on this phenomenon. I want to point out two things. Right, I want to point out first of all what the Midrash said. Let's go back to that. I start the Torah with you because you begin the word baracha. Baracha, which means blessing, is an even more interesting word because it's the word baruch, right? Has, in terms of numerical values, right? The bet is worth 2, and then the resh is worth 200, and the kaf is worth 20. So there, everything stays in the multiplicity. And that is indeed the case with blessing. Blessing is the calling to multiplication, and the first blessing God makes in the Torah, a few verses into.
What about the hay? There's no
We'll
hay.
get to that, don't worry. I'm talking now about Baruch.
Baruch. Bracha, I'm sorry. Baruch versus bracha.
No verses yet.
Yeah.
But the
First.
Let's wait a second. That the nature of blessing is the multiplication, right? And that's and this is an important thing, by the way. And here it's going to be a little bit of an aside, but not really, as you'll see in the end. But that when I bless someone, this is a claim that I make, right? That when I bless someone, I actually am looking for that which this person already has and asking that it be aggrandized. This is, I believe, different than prayer. Prayer, you're in trouble, I will pray for you. Bless you, I understand to require that there be that which already is, which I'm asking now that it be multiplied tenfold, hundredfold, whatever it is. And it's clear to me that Chazal, that our teachers see it this way. Like, for instance, you'll find this, like it's spoken of actually in the halacha, that before you say Birkat HaMazon, make sure there's still some food on the table. Don't clear off the table entirely. Leave some crumbs, right? Some of you who grew up from probably are familiar with this. Like, you leave some crumbs on the table. Don't bring a whole loaf, because that looks like necromancy, but leave some crumbs, right? Is that a word? That's a word.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so, all right, anyhow, don't get worried about it. But the point is, why would you need to leave those crumbs? So the I think it's in the Talmud or the Midrash says, because bracha is only not shoreh on a kli rekan. Bracha only comes down to a kli, to a vessel which already has something in it, and then it makes it grow into even more, right? It grows into even more. So I say this in this context, right? Because that growthfulness, that like expansiveness, that increasing of the multiplicity is something that reflects this kind of commitment to adoration and appreciation of this world, which is designed for growth, and of all the things we do religiously, right? Literally religiously and spiritually, I would say the biggest, most ubiquitous service that we do, right? The most widespread one is saying brachas, right? We're always saying brachas. You gotta make sure you say 10 times 10 brachas every day. It's like the first thing said to Abraham is, go out of this place and become a bracha. You will become a bracha. All the peoples will be blessed by you. Oh my gosh, what is this going on here? What's going on here is that, well, Lech Lecha itself has the gematria of 100. 50 and 50, that's the 100 blessings we're making every day, as we're actually imitating Avraham moving forward. Okay, so this kind of expansive orientation, right? Blessing is what the Medrash was referring to when it said, "I'm beginning the world with a bet because you begin the word blessing." That's what blessing is. And this is a beautiful orientation now in terms of avoda, in terms of divine service. It's like every time you're about to take something from this world, right, and get pleasure from it, appreciate the fact that there is this you and it, and there's pleasure in the meeting of them, and that pleasure in the meeting of them becomes a awakening to the blessing of multiplicity. And according to not only the Kabbalists, but certainly the Kabbalists, when you make a bracha, you actually draw down more shefa to, so to speak, begin the process of replacing what you've taken. L'chaim, I already made it. L'chaim. But it's a beautiful orientation for every time you eat something or take pleasure from it, that like I'm bonding now together two things of difference. I'm creating a zivug, I'm creating a bonding of them into one. And the experience of that is pleasurable. And when I notice that pleasure, I appreciate the fact that God made his world this way, with a multiplicity which can have that point of meeting, which would awaken pleasure. right? And so therefore that's the moment to say to Hashem, Baruch Atah, wow, you are, you know,
In essence, the uplifting of it.
overflowing with actually the downlifting of it.
Mm.
The calling to Hashem, out of appreciation. Wow, make more of this.
Right, but the
This is
uplifting
good.
of the thing that you're removing because you're
Okay,
taking a higher
I'll stay
level,
with
right?
I'll stay with it. Yeah. So that was that was just to sort of complete the explanation
exactly.
of why it's bracha. That is the word that the bet contains within it. That is actually the avoda that we do that keeps bringing us back to the nature of life as being in its multiplicity, yearning and seeking and giving pleasure when it's bonded together into one. Okay, so that's the end of, so to speak, chapter 1. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is to look at how the Torah actually gives indication to its purpose being in this direction. And for this, I want to, in our last 5 minutes, I want to point us in the direction to the very end of the Torah, not the end of the Tanakh, which is also worth its own investigation. But if you take a look at the book of Deuteronomy in Dvarim, right?
The last parsha?
Not the last parsha, but close to it, in chapter 32, Deuteronomy. Okay, so you'll see there, let me give you the verse in a sec. Actually, no, it's in 7. I think I'm sending it to the wrong place. Just 1 second. Chapter 30. Chapter 30. Parshas Nitzavim. So, if you look there at the beginning of chapter 30, so you'll see really an extraordinary statement. It is the eschatological statement of the Torah, meaning it's the end of the time statement in the Torah. We don't have many of that in the Chumash, right? In the first 5 books. We have it more in the prophets, right? Talking about how it will be in the what's called the Messianic times, the times of salvation. But here Moshe Rabbeinu actually tells us something about it in the beginning of chapter 30, where he says, when all these things come upon you, which have been described, which are all of the travails and successes of the Jewish people, and then you really bring it into your heart, like really pay attention to what's been happening, and you're still out there among all of the nations where God has dispersed you. Veshavta, verse 2, Veshavta ad Adonai Elohecha, Veshamata bekolo asher and then you return to God and you start listening to His voice. Veshav Adonai Elohecha et shchutcha v'michamecha, Veshav v'kibetzcha mikol ha'anim asher kitzcha Adonai Elohecha shama. And then God returns all of those who have been enslaved in prison, or all of those who are waiting to return, whatever shchutcha is here, and has compassion upon you. And He gathers you together from all of the places you've been dispersed. Now watch what happens. And then, I'll just read it in English. And then you're brought into the land which your ancestors inherited, and you yourself will inherit it. And He will make make things good for you and multiply you greatly. Now verse 6. Umal Adonai Elohecha et levavcha v'et levav zarecha. And He will circumcise, which really basically means He will cut off a protective coating, right, from your heart. And we'll need to get back to that, right, obviously. That levav zarecha, and that of your children. Le'ahavat Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha leman chayecha. To love God with all of your heart, with all of your powers, for the sake of your life. That's the picture. And I think that's really important to pay attention to. In other words, the highest achievement is love. Let's put it that way, so we understand what's been said here, right? The highest achievement is love, And that's it. That's where it goes. That's basically where it ends, except that it's for the sake of your life, which creates a very interesting interplay, right? Between, is it love or life? Is it love or life? Well, and how do we relate those two, love and life? I mean,
One doesn't exist without the other.
well, that's for sure. You can't, if you're dead, then you're not going to be loving. And it seems, though, that if you're loving, that somehow that will be life. And just talking experientially, it's true, right? When you're in love, and whatever it is you're in love with, maybe you're in love with another human being, and maybe you're in love with a piece of music, and maybe you're in love with. When there's an experience of love, when there's an experience of love, so the intensity of life increases. Is that not so? It's like, it's, you want to say something?
Well, there's also the story of the explanation of the Kinneret Yamamelech, that the Kinneret gives out. They're both fed by the Jordan, but the Kinneret gives out, so it's living.
Okay.
But
All right. Well, I just want to stay experiential right now,
sorry.
and that is that there's something which intensifies when you're in love. If you're in love with Torah, if you're in love with the teachings, everything becomes more alive. It's not just that is more alive. There's kind of a universalization of the experience, even though there's a particular object towards which your love is directed, right? And then the sky is just bluer and the flowers are more intense. I mean, I actually had this experience, when I first like noticed that I was loving my wife, before we were married, and like I just remember walking away from. I remember the meeting. It was like I was learning in a certain yeshiva, and it was like this very small like park, which somehow had managed to avoid being built on. And we were sitting on it, and suddenly, like, when I walked away from the meeting, like everything just looked brighter.
Your first meeting?
We'll discuss that at a different time.
Esther.
But okay, I'm just to touch you. I'm sharing this with you, but I really want to stay on point, and that is that this incredible, I think it's just a beautiful statement that the Torah makes here, that like when that which blocks your heart from love is removed, that's for the sake of your life. And I think we might there perhaps maybe this is a good time to put aside the dualism and not try to differentiate, even though the Torah is doing that to a certain extent, but somehow, and with this we're going to be ending, right? Somehow there is some sort of a not just congruence, but what's a better word than congruence? Like when they come together, a confluence of life and love. And this is going to be very interesting for us because we want to understand what needs to be moved aside or cut away from our hearts that would allow for this to happen, to fully live, and where did that build up happen that Hashem needs to intervene here and to divine act to make that possible, and Bezrat Hashem will get there next time.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye now.
Okay.
We'll turn this
I
off.
have a personal question. You said
Hello, and Esther.
Oh, yeah.
Are you sure you want to stop recording to the cloud? Yes.
yes.